Barbara. Before Barbara, the meeting will come to order. Barbara, will you please call the roll?
We have Commissioners Berard, Fleming, Funderburk, Levine, and Noonan present.
All are present. This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. I don't believe I have any opening remarks today, which will disappoint all of you, I'm sure. Report briefing by the General Manager.
Thank you, sir. I didn't have a briefing this morning. I wanted to note the presence of John Dennis. He is standing in for Randy Howard, who is out today. And currently, David Wiggs, our CAO, and Matt Lamp, our CIO, are still in council chambers on an item, and they should be with us shortly.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Comments from commissioners on agendized items and requests from commissioners relating to departmental operations. Any? Okay. Public comment.
I have no cards.
You have no cards?
No cards.
That's also disappointing. Okay. Comments from ratepayer advocate on agendized items.
No comment until we get to item 21.
Which item?
21.
21. Okay. Okay. On the first consent item, we'll take it separately. Approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
They're approved. The consent agendas, items 7 through 15. Do any commissioners wish to remove any of these items?
I'd like to remove 13 and 14.
Those were mine as well.
Okay. Any others?
Yes, I have some. Let's see, 13, you've got that. What is this? 8.
Any others?
That's
There
it.
aren't many others left. So.
No, I know. Well, we have 3 votes for 13.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve items number 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, and do we want to hold 15 for discussion, or?
No, that'll be, we're going to do the presentation at a different date.
Okay, so 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 15. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
It's moved and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
They're approved. Item 8, Commissioner Barad.
Yes, I just have a question about 8. This is to furnish and deliver bill mailing envelopes used in the monthly mailing for the billing statements, and I wondered the use of the word monthly, since we bill every 2 months. Is this monthly? Where did the word monthly come from?
It was actually just a summary phrase, ma'am. We bill residentials bi-monthly, but commercials and industrial monthly. So it wasn't meant to infer some change in the billing cycle.
That's what I was wondering, if
Yes,
this was
So
for a
that's,
change.
Commissioner, that is also, we continue to bill, on a daily basis, and the approximate volume with both the ingoing and outgoing envelopes, these would be samples of those, would be actually in the volume of about 1 million per month of each. So actually, the volume is about 2 million per month.
Okay, so the billing doesn't change.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I actually had the same question.
Oh,
But I was,
and it was evidently a marvelous one.
evidently. Is there a motion? I move it. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. Okay, we go to item 13, Commissioner Fleming.
So it seems there are 3 of us who have a bunch of questions probably on this. I would.
You were first.
Thank you, then. I'd like a full kind of presentation on what this is, what it involves, soup to nuts kind of on this one, and then we can talk about the proposal process in a second. But I'm at first just curious about what this entails.
Okay. The contract designed.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Okay. George Chen, rates manager. Through the rates, case and in the past, and we try to way to reach our customer more effectively. We have about 200,000 commercial customers, and we have about 1.2 million residential customers. And it's very hard to answer, and most questions come up with, oh, you have a rate case, what's my impact for the next couple of years? And so in the past, I always get a call, every morning I drive down the street, and Ron at the time, Ron Nichol was our general manager, called, well, Kaiser, the impact, or UCLA, USC, what's the impact? So I did this so on for every day. So I said, well, this is pretty cumbersome, and it gets everybody nervous, getting the information right there quickly. So we end up doing that, well, and we can use the technology. We have the database. So we calculate all these impacts, and we put all the information on the web. And since that experience is over, since then, I don't get any calls, and the customer will go into the system. They use their own IDs and get the impacts, all the information is up there. So through that experience, we say, whoa, that's a pretty effective way to reach our customers. So from this on, we say there's a couple issues we like to use for the sustainability projects. In JFB, JFB here, and we have some energy, tips, and they like to say, oh, what kind of low information, what kind of usage I have. So we provide the data to them, and we do the analysis for them, and you see some impacts in the parking lot. The lights are turning off, which is great. We say, well, yeah, daytime we don't need those lights, and they start to dim the lights and see the impacts. So, and we provide a lot of information and also the cost savings. Then I look out the window, I said, there's so many of those big buildings in the city. Why don't they, get the same information if we can? But we don't have enough resource to provide those information one-on-one basis. We said, well, maybe the web. We use the web to get those information. So under that kind of assumption, we try to do the rate impact. Also, there's a lot of question about our rates are pretty complicated. They say, well, it's hard to calculate the water rates, power rates. And everybody have different ways to calculate it. We say, why doing that? If we can build a calculator on the web, our customer can get in there and punch their usage, and we'll come out the rates which match our bills. That will be save a lot of time and also very efficient to answer the questions.
Okay, George, if I could
sorry.
interrupt you briefly. The intent is, after analyzing what customers want and hearing what they want, to try to translate that information into web-based tools that automate their inquiries and provide them the data without us necessarily having to analyze it on a one-off basis. So is the question more, what other types of areas are we automating?
No,
load of questions?
it was more about the tool itself. So how much was web-based, how much was mobile-based, Commissioner Barrage just asked a question a minute ago about envelopes. We still have an insanely high number of our customers who depend on paper bills, who don't even utilize technology to pay their bills, never mind looking at technology to figure out what rates are going to cost. How much of it is web, how much of it is mobile app, those kind of questions, which I didn't see.
Okay, I think those are certainly very valid areas. Just very quickly, we are, as the billing system continues to stabilize, we're going to augment our push to move more people to electronic billing because it certainly is to everyone's advantage.
Absolutely.
Georgia, if you could just answer the specific question as to what's web-based versus available on mobile tools.
Right. Right now, we just started this, and we think we like to, in the past, we know there's about 100,000 some customers. Out of that, 1.2 million customers sign up for the web service. And we like to, continue for that and on different applications. And not only for the billing piece, and we also like to provide information on rate comparison. All these, customer frequently ask questions. We like to post on the web and help them to solve problems. As our general manager direct us. And moving forward, we're going to use more and more on the technology. I think the web is a very good tool for us.
Part of one of the things that makes this advantageous is that our rates are probably one of the most complex out there. There's probably between 100 and 150 different combinations. And so it becomes very much a one-off exercise for us to individually analyze the rate, make recommendations if you're on the right rate. This was actually an area of interest. Years ago when I worked here, Randy was the rates manager, and this was a process we were trying desperately to automate because it was incredibly labor intensive. And that's probably the advantage for the customers in being able to sign on at a time of their choosing, self-select their area of interest, get the information they want, and for us to be able to provide it on a less than labor-intensive basis is really the bang for the buck.
Right, and I would celebrate all of that. I think what would have been helpful is I'm guessing there are other utilities nationwide who have had similar issues, use similar both similar apps and also a web presence. It'd be great to see kind of what those have looked like, not necessarily to compare apples to oranges, but at least have some sense of what those look like for other utilities, how other folks are using those apps, and then the same we had a number of people who were competing for this, but at the end we only get one entity that fills out all the forms correctly, right? And that's
an
troubling,
ongoing,
right?
that's
And
an
I'm trying to
LA
figure out who
issue.
did these across the country. Why aren't they included in this
You
package?
will,
So
you will
bigger
enjoy our
question.
procurement presentation later today, I'm sure, because Gwen did try to place some emphasis on the non-responsiveness and the root cause of that. LA is, I would tell you, behind the curve in this. Edison, Anaheim, I'm familiar with the offerings in a variety of utilities, and they have had these kind of sign-on analytic tools available for quite some time. We were at a disadvantage because we needed to make the conversion to the CIS from that large-scale manual tool, and so there are a variety of tools. The advantage in the web-based is that you can continue to customize them based on the accumulated data you get, how people use it, how frequently they use it, what questions fall outside of it. So this will be a learn as you go. So we have to kind of base it on what's specific to our rate structure and information, because it's very different in some of the other agencies. I've used a lot of Edison's and certainly all of Anaheim's tools to compare to.
I'd like to add that the memo does indicate 15 areas that we're thinking about, and we would issue a task order when we have determined that we do want one of those items, and we've spec'd out and done as much work on it as we could, including looking at what other utilities are doing in these areas. So this funding for this contract will allow us to do much of this work, not necessarily each and every one of the 15 items.
Right. It just would have been helpful, I think, for the commission to see what that looks like in other entities, what the costs of those were for other folks, and then what the costs are going to be for us for developing this going forward.
See, one of the fallout is we wanted to be able to do it on a task-oriented basis, and a lot of the vendors, they want the whole, lump sum, whether it ends up that particular task ends up being used by your customers or not. Right. So that had a tendency to narrow the bidding as well.
Okay, thanks.
Do other commissioners have questions on this item?
I would like to elaborate on Commissioner Fleming's questions. He asked a lot of the questions that I had, so thank you. Since we control our data, which we can communicate to customers, I'd like to understand exactly what we're getting for our money. Why is this a 3-year contract? Why aren't we just making an initial investment for 1 year and our staff can maintain this web-based application?
Yeah, it is task order based. Pretty much, we would like to see there's several projects in the queue for us to try to solve the problem. Internally, we have a lot of needs for this function, the web function, that mainly like solar systems we wanted to watch, and also have the comparisons. So different projects there. So we see there's enough demand for us. We already list those 15 different projects we'd like to go. So, and we think, we probably cannot do it in one shot. So it takes 3 years and small amount. We try to test it out, and hopefully we have several successful applications going to develop. And then we come back and say, okay, here's the ones that work for us.
I think there's some priorities. We couldn't get all of these done in the next year. However, some of them, like the rate impact calculator, that will be needed as we move forward with the rate case over the next year. So that'll be the most immediate priority. Some of the other ones will be good to do, but not essential in the first year.
And so this data is not available in-house. We need to rely on this third entity to buy that information. I can understand investing in the software, which may be proprietary, but I'm confused about sharing data that we potentially have in our own hands, and why we're paying a third party to communicate the data that we could relay directly with ratepayers?
It is a joint kind of project. We have the data, like you said, and we do some of analysis, and also consultant come in help us. Oh, that's the other people doing, and they give us tips. And also, otherwise, the cost is going to be much more. So they provide us a consulting, and we if we don't know how to do some of those functions or analysis, we say, okay, help us. There's a task order going to generate. So there's supplement of our in-house capability.
Are they consulting you on the web-based application, or are they consulting you on the data? I'm confused.
Actually, both. The analysis and the web, approaches, and also programming software.
I think, in short, we're not staffed to do all of this work all at once in the time frame that's required. We need some supplemental resources and expertise to help us with this. If we had a staff that was kind of set for peak workload, we might be able to do it ourselves, but we have constraints in IT, we have constraints in rates, and this is just some supplemental resources. And in terms of cost, the billing rates are quite competitive, quite cost effective.
Since you've stated that this is an initial investment and that you see chapters continuing after this, I would suggest that the department look at hiring capable people to handle this web application instead of adding addendums and more costs to hiring third parties. I would like to see the comparison of doing this in-house versus being engaged and committed to this entity, biometrics, Boris metrics.
Yes.
And, Mr. Lieber, I know that we've had this discussion before. I'm always very tentative, especially having served on this board for 5 years, of starting an initial investment and not knowing what the cost will be in future years. And I think this is case in point. I would like to understand, if we are going to commit with this partnership, what it'll cost us in the long term compared to doing this in-house. Because I think, for the most part, we control the data.
The data is largely ours. The ability, part of our challenge is within a civil service system, how all the jobs are classified, how people can move and promote. It's difficult to develop a depth of field in an area that changes so rapidly as information technology. It's one thing to learn a skill, a journey level craft, to climb a pole, there's some consistency. This changes with great rapidity, and my concern is we're going to continue to add resources that then become again engaged in legacy systems. So there is a tremendous amount of flexibility to use consultants in this way, and we can link the amount of money to the deliverability on those specific projects, and we can report at 6-month intervals exactly what we've had and the success that we've had. But this particular area of the business doesn't have the predictability that I know everyone would like for it to have, and yet we need to move ahead, or we're going to end up in positions like we did with the CIS, where we just sit for 40 years because we can't find a way to justify moving forward because we can't make it bulletproof.
I'm not saying not moving forward, but Mayor Garcetti, one of his hallmarks in becoming mayor was about changing the system. And yes, the system is broken. And yes, hiring people is difficult. At the same token, I do not want our ratepayers to be spending 3 times the amount of money outsourcing this work if it could be achieved in-house. And so I just ask that you consider that.
I think the knowledge transfer activities are critical to developing the in-house capability.
That being said, I would like to reiterate that I would like a comparison of what the cost would be to hire people internally, even though we realize this would be very complicated, versus the commitment that we're making to this firm long-term, not just for this initial investment, but long-term, what they expect in continuing this partnership.
We'd be glad to do that, and we'll provide that.
Commissioner Barad?
Thank you. I'd like to refer to the Agreement for Services, Exhibit G, page 2. The contractor requirements. paragraph 2, I think, is really the key issue for me, that the consultant will develop applications leveraging web and mobile internet technologies that provide information to DWP's customers on rates, business policies, operation, and so on, to understand their water and electric charges. So I think that's a big issue, and it's a big issue to with our ratepayers, and people say they can't understand the bills. So how is this Varus Metrics going to do this? What did you find in your interview and your reading, their background, and how are they experienced in doing that so that customers can understand their water and electric charges?
So we kind of, they help us to develop, the viewers and local on the web, and make it simple, deliver information. And, we develop those tools that, in the past we do mostly for our in-house use right now, for checking the numbers for the large customers. And when customer comes in, ask a question, say, what if I, turn on the lights during different times? What's the impact? So they help us to program these.
But I'm asking you specifically about this contractor.
Yes.
That's what I'm asking you. What did you find in your research and interviewing this contractor that you want to hire them for 3 years, that they have the experience that they can carry this out?
Commissioner Broad, maybe I'll address that, and George can amplify my remarks. I think two aspects of this firm make them successful in this. One is they work for many other municipal utilities in California, so they are familiar with approaches used elsewhere, and that is one of the things that we can't get as easily from our staff. They're not out there seeing how all the other munis are doing it. So when we have a challenge, how can we simplify things? How can we make it easier? They can bring ideas, what they've seen elsewhere. Another thing that they bring to the table is they have worked with us in the past on a number of rate matters. So this complexity that Marcy addressed, they have some familiarity with that. So they understand what they're dealing with in terms of trying to make a very complex rate structure a little more understandable.
So you have seen examples of this that they've done in other municipalities? How they've made these complex rates understandable for ratepayers? I mean, other than them just saying that they did it, you've actually seen that?
They did a lot of work throughout California, and they helped, Pasadena, Glendale, also all these neighboring utility use a lot of their ideas and design, and also, providing information. And we work with in the past, and there's a lot of good results coming out of these. And our rates, they give us a lot of good advice, and our large commercial customers pretty much, they are very, happy with our rate design and the information. So there's a lot of good, feedbacks, and we like to have that kind of care, that kind of knowledge to apply to more customers, and use the tools to, deliver this information.
All right, now, what is the relationship? How does it work within the system? Who does this company? Who do they report to? And
They'll be reporting to Mr. Chen as the rates manager. But I also should clarify, we're not just outsourcing a function lock, stock, and barrel. They're going to work under the direction of the rates group, and they're also going to work hand in hand with our customer service group and our IT group to ensure that whatever work they're doing is consistent with the look and feel and the IT standards. So these are supplemental resources that bring some expertise and some additional staff that we don't have, but we're not just taking a project, handing off, and saying, come back when it's done. We're going to be working very closely with them hand in hand.
Well, I understood it was also our plan to evaluate these tasks or applications and then be able to either take it in-house, plug and play if it's a long-standing one that's valuable, or test the market with these and decide that that it doesn't really comport to our system. So it's more the ability to shape our front end. And I'm sensitive to Commissioner Noonan because ultimately, for workload that's consistent and predictable, I need to be able to staff up and be able to handle it inside. But this is more startup and evaluative. And so that's the reason we're starting with a greater contractual emphasis.
Yeah, and that's really what I had in mind, was who evaluates what they do. I would think that our customer service department should have some pulse on the community, and, you know.
It's actually customer service. They've been advocating strongly for the development of these tools because much of our call workload is based on things that you should be able to gain from a search of the internet or running a program or an application. So they've been very much in support.
Yeah, exactly. If those are the kinds of calls that people don't understand what they're being billed for. And I would think also a lot of our ratepayers don't search the website. They don't have, especially our seniors, they don't have the technology to do that, and they're just going to pick up the phone and call. And so I think that all this feeds into each other. Thank you.
I would just like to add to your comments, which I think are very appropriate. Although I think all of us really would like to see increased activity with people paying online, surprisingly, it hasn't caught on as quickly as we had aspired that it would. And so I do see this as a necessary tool to move forward with the times. But if this is any reflection of ratepayers not paying online, I think we need to be cautious about moving forward. I think it's a good initial investment. I think we need to study who could do it in-house, if we could hire those people, what the cost comparison would be. And if we are going to engage in a long-term contract with this firm, I would like to have a commitment from them as to what it would cost us in the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Right now, this is a 3-year partnership, but if you do not see us housing this in staff, I would like them to commit to a rate that is acceptable. I don't want the ratepayers to be ripped off after we make this initial investment with them.
I think everyone is very sensitive if they were to come back in 3 years with an amendment to simply extend this cost, that would literally be unsupportable. So I think the evaluation that you are asking for as this moves forward is completely appropriate.
I've just seen too many times other situations where we do make the initial investment and then afterwards we're hostage with an entity. So thank you for that.
And I guess I just would have one final comment, which is I get it when we look at lots of things here, like buying a dump truck or something, right, that someone doesn't have to bring me an example in the room to show me what a dump truck is. Of all the presentations that probably could have been made today, and Phil just said these folks have extensive experience doing this for utilities even throughout California, it would have been very helpful to have a presentation. I mean, if the whole point of what these folks are going to do is make it so that ratepayers understand our complex rate system, you really could have shown us the product so that we had something tangible to vote on. The dollar amount doesn't bother me as much as not being able to look at what this was supposed to look like.
I actually think that is probably something we're certainly willing to commit to the evaluative process, but I also think it's not that difficult for us to put together some of the example graphics on what we think are some of the major initial deliverables, and I will commit to us providing that subsequent so you can get a feel for it. Because frankly, I think it's great PR, and I think you'll love what it is.
Exactly. Thank you.
I had a question.
Okay.
To the general manager, because you have vast experience in this area, and certainly with other public. Had you heard of this company when you were at the Anaheim?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you've already know about them.
They're familiar in the industry, and there are a number of people that do this type of service. The advantage with Boris Metrics here, though, is that their previous work has given them a familiarity with our database and the type of customer questions. It'll give them a big jump on the learning curve.
So will our customer hold times go down, in your judgment, as a result of our getting this off the ground in the next 6 months?
Ultimately, yes, but our call times are much more a function of still being unable to reach adequate staffing level in customer service center personnel. And we're going to do a briefing in the next 1 or 2 meetings. I don't believe the next one, but the subsequent one, on where we are in that entire process.
But this will help you.
This will absolutely help in the longer term.
Thank you.
Is this company's main focus IT, or are they going to actually look at the bills, the paper, the hard copies that people get in the mail?
They do both. They help.
Both?
Yeah.
That's good.
I only have one last comment, and I know that we are going to segue into this conversation during the procurement report. But one thing that upset me, and Commissioner Fleming talked about it, we received one bid, although we had received attention on bidding for this assignment. And the reason that was given was misinterpretation of the use of task orders. And so I'm hoping that we refine and clarify contingencies and guidelines to make it a very fair playing field for all appropriate vendors to bid on work with DWP.
Other comments? Other questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? It passes. Item 14.
So this one, it'll be the same kind of questions we just had on the last one, but it's again about procurement. And this has to do, so again, I'm less concerned about the dollar amount and even the winning bid. The request for proposal process had a total of 3 proposals received. 2 of the firms were considered non-responsive because they failed to submit city ethics forms. So I'd like to know how, and I've looked at city ethics forms before, they're not that complex, so I'm trying to figure out why they didn't submit. Do we have a conversation about them not submitting, try to get them to submit? And then when you look at the actual documents, if you look at page 1 during the procurement summary, we score the firm that got the winning bid. We don't score the 2 who simply didn't furnish the ethics report. And that what I'd like to see is the score, even if they didn't submit the ethics report, because I'm concerned that the folks who got this scored an 86.1. For all I know, the other 2 scored even higher. They simply didn't furnish a form. And did we take every step we could to get them to do the ethics form so that this would be a more competitive process?
This is a topic that we discuss in-house because I ask many of the same questions, and mine are similar in that isn't there some level of subjectivity? I mean, if going to the next bidder would cost us another $4 million, we've had a couple of these. We've pursued them all the way to the Ethics Commission, and it's been explained to us in fairly no uncertain terms that there is no flexibility in this. But this is going to be an item that I believe, Gwen, is part of your procurement presentation later today. We're going to be touching on this in detail, sir, and we can try to tease it out here, but it may make more sense in the context of the presentation.
Yeah, I mean, even one for the ethics piece, but also just for the scoring. So we certainly could at least do the scoring so that even as a commission we could look and say, well, we're not giving it to this other bidder because they failed to provide certain forms, but they actually score much higher. It seems to me that we're not getting as much information as we probably could be getting.
And I'd just like to add on that, really just to underscore Commissioner Fleming's question about did we do all we can to ensure that they did comply? Did we go back to them and say, you didn't submit these forms, please submit them? Did we do that?
Why don't you take that
in my presentation, but what I'd like to say in Gwen Williams, Supply Chain, in response to Commissioner Fleming's statement, the first thing that we do when we're evaluating proposals is the first step that we have to take is to determine who is a responsive and responsible bidder. And if you don't pass the responsiveness test, you don't go any further. So there's no evaluation that takes place, because if they can't cure it, there's no sense in evaluating it. We're just wasting time and resources because it's an item that they cannot cure.
But in terms of what I can't figure out is when we look at this, we can't all it says to us is there's one form with city ethics that they didn't complete.
Right.
So you're saying before you did any other kind of evaluation on them, you waited for the ethics form to be turned in?
Well, before we do anything, all the documents have to come in at the same time. And the process that everyone goes through, no matter where you are in the country, is you evaluate the proposals and the bids to determine if they're responsive and responsible first. And if they are not responsible or responsive, then you don't go on to any further evaluation.
Well, if a document is missing, do we tell them and ask them to submit it?
You cannot, this document must be submitted at the time of the, and the way the form is written and the ordinance is written is that the document must be completed in its entirety and correctly at the time of the bid. In my presentation, I'll steal my thunder, but this has been a problem since I've been here. We've had problems with forms since I've been here. There were 18 forms required at the time of bid when I first got here. There are now only 4, because I've worked with everybody. I've worked with the city attorney's office to determine which one do we absolutely have to have at the time of bid and which ones can we chase. The CEC 55 form continues to be a problem. It is not a form that is easy to understand. You may be looking at the conflict of interest form, which is pretty simple, but the CEC form we found is very confusing. It has 2 little boxes that they have to, with size 6 font, that they have to check, that they miss. The place where they have to sign doesn't make any sense. Finally, because our numbers were increasing in terms of non-response bids, I went to the city attorney's office and I said, I want a meeting with the city attorney that handles the ethics group. Dirk and I went over last week. We spent an hour with them, we gave them our suggestions for modifications to the form. And we also, Dirk suggested that there was a modification that they could do to the ordinance, which would allow the form to be submitted after the bid. But currently, we have to be compliant with the ordinance, and it must be submitted at the time of the bid, and they cannot cure it later.
You do a lot of work up front with these bidders to try to help them understand what to submit?
Well, we do. We've had bid responsiveness workshops for the last year where we've told people if they need help, they can come in and we'll help them. Recently, we added we included a paragraph in the specification documents that say, if you need help with your documents, if you want to make sure that they're in compliance, you can submit those forms 24 hours in advance of your bid, and up to 24 hours in advance of your bid. We'll review them, tell you if you have a problem with them, and then it's on you, the vendor, to submit compliant forms with your bid. But we've stood on our head. It's just that when you get a new vendor that isn't used to bidding with the department or with the city and all of the rules and regulations that we have, they just make mistakes. And like I said, it's gotten to the point where we've been challenging the powers that be on all of these forms because they're not under our control for the last 2 years, and we've gone from 18 forms to 4. And the Ethics Commission staff that met with us said that they would take this to the Ethics Commission. The easiest change would be for them to change the form because the Ethics Commission could do that, and they won't be meeting until October. Well, their next meeting that we could get on the agenda is in October. But the ordinance would take a lot longer because they've got to get city council approval, but they're open to making that change. Also, they're supposed to get back to us next week on the position that they're going to take on it.
Just to clarify President Levine's point, he asked if a document is missing, would we advise the entity that's bidding on the work? And having heard you speak now, you state that in the entire bidding process, if an entity submits their bid 24 hours prior to the deadline, the department will review it and will advise them if they are missing a document?
Yes, so that they can then fix it and turn it in at the time of the bid. They can't, not after the bid, but at the time of the bid.
And we have the staff to do that, to review these bids that come
Well,
in
we
within
don't.
24 hours?
We don't.
Okay.
We certainly don't. But, you know, I get beat up by all of these non-responsive bid issues. But it's something, we have an outside attorney that's been working with us to update our terms and conditions. And we were discussing this issue with him last Friday. And his suggestion was, well, why don't you offer the bidders the ability to come in early and present their documents and let you review them. This is something we just started. But, you know...
I know I shared this with you one-on-one, and the idea was initiated by Commissioner Fleming, who made a very, very simple analogy. He said, you know, the goal is to save money for our ratepayers. And so we're talking about billing online, we're talking about web-based applications, and why not have the procurement process happen online as well?
It does.
And so, no, but in a way, when you're shopping for something, if you don't fill out your credit card form, it gives you a trigger. It says you cannot complete this endeavor without submitting this information. I think long term, we really should look for that kind of approach. And that way we increase the audience of vendors that are willing to participate and bid on work to make prices more advantageous for our ratepayers.
Well, we did make that change. We made that change. We added a list, a checklist, so that if they don't upload the form, it will reject the bid and tell them you haven't uploaded the form. The problem that we have is sometimes we had a very large construction bid recently, and it wasn't the lowest bidder, but the second lowest bidder did upload the form, but he uploaded the wrong form.
Well, I'm glad to learn that this is in place. So now with all bidding, it's done online, and there needs to be certain forms filled out to know that they are being seriously considered.
Yes.
Well, bravo.
Yes. We have ERSP, our online bidding system. Before, they wouldn't know that they hadn't uploaded a document. So like I said, we went to a checklist and said, okay, you have to download this form and you have to upload this form. And if you don't, then it'll reject your bid and say it's incomplete.
So
we don't have the ability to read every single line on that form. If they're missing a signature, that's not something that we can ascertain electronically.
So these entities that failed to submit their city ethics commission forms were advised, you know what, this form was not submitted. We are not going to consider your firm because of this.
Well, no, they'd have to come to us. They submitted the bid probably at 1:50, and it was due at 2 o'clock. It wasn't where it came in 24 hours, and we advised them.
So they didn't take advantage of your 24-hour window?
I don't think it was available at the time that we advertised this solicitation. It's relatively new that we've taken this extra step.
Out of curiosity, when was it implemented?
Just about a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
That we moved in that direction.
I'm pleased to hear that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. We'll see you again shortly.
Any other questions or comments for Gwen on this one? Barbara advises me that we just had a speaker card turned in for this one for number 14.
Okay, the speaker is Linda Clark. And please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Thank you.
So, good morning. My name is Linda Clark. I'm with Langford & Carmichael. We're a small local business, women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned, based in Studio City, California. I'm interested to see the procurement presentation, but I thought I had a comment to address just based on the discussion on item number 14. So relating to forms being submitted and so forth, I've had the opportunity to go to some of these classes on how to use the ERSP system, but what I noticed about some of the issues that DWP is having specifically related to these forms is a lot of the bidders' conferences are not mandatory. So in some of the procurements I've been to, where I've been to the pre-bid conference, I would say out of an hour and a half, an hour meeting, probably 45 minutes is spent on the forms that are due, and the procurement person goes through a lot of detail for the people that are in the room. And there's even an option for people who aren't local to actually dial into these pre-bid conferences. So when you see people who didn't attend the pre-bid conference, either because they missed the procurement solicitation, or they're out of town, or what have you, a lot of people might be just having some offshore team pull this together, and their English isn't very good, or they're not here, or they use cut and paste from whatever they did before, and that may be also something to consider. So just more information for your consideration. Thank you.
That was the last card for that item.
Is there a motion on item 14?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's approved. Okay, we move to the regular agenda, item 16, Linden Ranch and Pine Tree Master Wind Farm all-risk property insurance.
I can kick this off, and Mr. Salazar can provide any additional comments or address any questions that are needed. This is an element of our property insurance. It's one of several insurance policies that the department maintains. We provided in the board memorandum an indication of our overall insurance program with respect to what policies are coming to you in what months. And overall, we're going to be coming to you 6 times during the year. With respect to this item, we do intend to consolidate this policy with our broader property insurance, but right now they're sequenced differently. So we were able to get the winning carrier to provide a 13.5-month carrier or policy, so that by next November this will be aligned with our other property coverage and will only be coming to you 5 times during the year. We were pleased that this was a cost-effective renewal because we're getting 13.5 months of coverage, basically for the same cost that we paid last year for 12 months of coverage. We did conduct an abbreviated marketing effort. There were 6 companies that were approached. We did go forward with the incumbent that provided a small price break in terms of about a $1,000 discount from last time, plus an additional 1.5 months of coverage free. So it equated to about a 1/8 reduction in the cost. And that summarizes my comments, and Mr. Salazar can talk further if you'd like.
Commissioner Broad.
Yeah, Phil, I have a question. On page 3, Water Infrastructure Program, trunk line major construction. On the Sunset Boulevard trunk line, rehab phase 1, and Stone Hollywood trunk line. So, pardon me?
Which board package are you on?
I'm looking at what we were given, page 3.
That's item 17.
You don't have that?
Was that item 17?
What are we on now?
I think you want to fast forward the meeting, but I think we're talking about property insurance right now, and I think but I think your question is a great one, but I think it's coming up. Yeah.
How did I get?
We're on item 16, and that, I think the question you had was on item 17.
Oh, right, sorry.
You're ahead
I'm
of
on
us.
17.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon. I'll be back.
Well, I always want to say Mr. Lieber, but I was told you prefer Mr. Leiber, so I'm going to practice.
Either one works.
Okay. Mr. Leiber, I want to thank you for your summary. I feel that you've really listened to this board and have included the data that this board requires to approve these kind of items. And so I'm very comfortable moving forward with this item. I just want to state for the record, should ratepayers be curious as to why this bid was abbreviated, I believe it's because we changed from Wells Fargo to Aon, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so I think as long as that's stated, I'm very comfortable making a motion to move forward.
That's very high praise, Mr. Leiber.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to live up to it in the future.
Is
Thank
there
you.
a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
It's passed. And now we'll go to item 17, initial authorization to issue $271 million in water system revenue bonds.
Okay, Okay, first let me just start. I'd like to direct your attention to a chart that was in the board memo, because we're going to be presenting to you throughout this fiscal year numerous letters related to bonds, and I think it could very easily be a bit confusing. Normally every year you're going to see a bond transaction for water and for power. We've got a few more in front of us this year because given the amount of money we need to borrow for the power system, we're going to break it into two pieces. We also have the opportunity on the power side to do a bond refunding transaction several months from now. So given that, and given the fact that each bond offering actually requires coming to you twice, you can see we're going to be in front of you quite a bit with bond-related materials. Further, the first time we come to you with a bond transaction, there's actually two letters. There's an initial resolution and there's a reimbursement resolution. So that's what's in front of you today. The initial paperwork for a water new money transaction and for a power new money transaction. So that is summarized on page 4 of this memorandum, item 17. And for water, we will be requesting authorization to borrow $271 million. That funds about 37% of the water system's capital needs. Normally, bond funding is about 2/3 of the funding needs. It's less this time because we didn't spend all the money we borrowed last fiscal year, so we're carrying that forward. The board memo also describes where this funding is going. It's a $722 million budget in total, and it covers the 4 or 5 areas: safe drinking water, local water supply, water infrastructure, and regulatory compliance and miscellaneous items. So we have this initial resolution that requests the overall size of the borrowing. We will come back to you at a subsequent board meeting to provide more details about this particular transaction, including what type of bonds and the underwriter that would assist in the transaction. So that's a high-level summary, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Commissioner Barad.
Yes. On page 3, under Water Infrastructure Program, trunk line major construction, I'm just interested in the timing of this in here. Sunset Boulevard trunk line rehabilitation phase 1 and Stone Hollywood trunk line.
So the Sunset trunk line rehab phase 1 it's not the same trunk line that failed at UCLA. This would be a section of Sunset trunk line that's farther east along Sunset. And then on the Stone Hollywood trunk line, this would be the final connections to get that pipeline put into service.
To what?
The final connections. Most of that pipeline's already built, but there's some small pieces that need to be connected to finally put it into service.
All right, so how does, I assume that this was prepared before the rupture on...
That would be correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so how did you identify the one that's further east, this trunk line on Sunset Boulevard?
So this one would have been identified as part of our overall infrastructure program. We've got a system where we actually assign letter grades to all of our pipes, and we look at things like the leak history on the pipe and what kind of material it's constructed out of, what kind of soil it's bedded in, and then we prioritize pipes for replacement, and this section of Sunset is one of the ones that we'd like to get started on.
But the one that ruptured was not on this list.
It was not scheduled for replacement, correct.
All right, so I guess what I'm wondering is how did you target this one as opposed to the one that actually ruptured?
It has I'm just trying to recall off the top of my head. I know that it's got a pretty bad leak history. The one that ruptured, there was actually 2 pipes that came together there. The older of the 2 oddly enough, didn't have any leak history. The one that was a little bit younger had some leakage, but it wouldn't be considered severe. The one that we'd like to replace is a much leakier pipe, and we anticipate that it could be having problems sooner.
So this one, they've had experience with some
Yes.
leaks, or the other one
There was some leaks, but it wasn't considered a severe threat, which points out the imperfection in
Yes.
the methodology. We're always trying to get better and come up with more exact ways of doing this, but it's not an exact science, unfortunately.
Well, the one that ruptured had some welding, also the two that came together. Wasn't that part of the problem?
Yeah, we found that out when we dug it up, but we didn't know that before.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Second, those in favor?
Aye.
It's passed. 18, declaration of official intent to reimburse the Water Revenue Fund under Resolution Number 4883.
Mr. Chair, could I clarify the last motion? That was 17 and 20. They should theoretically be taken together. One is just the declaration we intend to
Okay,
repay
can we
ourselves.
consider that motion and vote to include item 20? Is there any objection?
No.
Thank you.
Done. 18.
18 is the reimbursement resolution that relates to the water bond issuance. What this allows us to do is to use these bond proceeds to fund our capital projects that we originally funded prior to the bond issuance. So that's why it's called a reimbursement resolution. It allows us to spend the money, issue the bonds, and then reimburse ourselves from bond proceeds. Without this resolution, we're only limited to spending the bond proceeds prospectively, and that we can run into problems with our cash flows in terms of our planning. So every time we bring you an initial issuance resolution, we will also be coming with a reimbursement resolution.
Questions? Is there a motion? I'll move. Second, those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. 19, initial authorization to issue up to $679 million in power system revenue bonds.
And I do have a speaker card for item 19.
Oh, there is a speaker card.
The speaker is William Schennereck.
Mostly written comments over there. My concern is that we're spending a lot of money, and we've been spending money on things like scattergood and solar energy, and now it looks like the horses are going to trample all the investments. Horses, actually, because nobody has a horse that has a job anymore.
Thank you.
Okay. So, as I had mentioned with the overview of the bond presentation, we have one new money bond issuance planned for water and one for power this year. For power, we're actually splitting it into two pieces. This resolution is for the total amount. We will come back to you at supplement meetings to talk about the supplemental resolution for Part 1 and Part 2 of this issuance. This is a request for authorization to issue $679 million of bonds. That will provide substantial funding for our $1.47 billion capital program in the power system. This will fund 46% of the capital program. Normally, the bond offerings are intended to cover about 2/3 of the capital program. This one is a little bit less for the same reason we had on the water system. We didn't spend all the money we borrowed last year, so we're carrying some of it forward, and we don't need to borrow as much this year. The table on pages 2 and 3 provides an overview of where this money is going. We talk about 4 programs. Power Supply Replacement Program, that's the largest element. That includes the repowering of the ocean-cooled gas plants. It includes funding for the Renewable Portfolio Standard, as well as energy conservation. The Power System Reliability Program is for replacing the aging cables, poles, cross arms, etc. That's the second largest component. And third is the Infrastructure Reliability Program. That includes rehabilitating various generating stations, investments in advanced metering, and other items. So in total, about $1.5 billion capital program. We can't fund that all through rates. It would be prohibitively expensive. We need to borrow to spread those costs of these long-lived assets over their useful lives. So we will be doing borrowing each and every year for the foreseeable future. This borrowing was large enough, we decided we would like to split it into two pieces to enable us to get the lowest interest rates possible. If we went all at once with $679 million of bonds, the market would charge us a higher rate. It would be too much for them to absorb at once. So we intend to split this into two pieces, issuing bonds both in October and probably in December. We will come to you at the next board meeting with the supplemental resolution with respect to Part 1.
Questions? Is there a motion? So move. Is there a second? Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. We move to item 21. Agreement numbers 47260A5, 47260A60B5, and 47260C5 for engineering design services for the Owens Lake Dust Mitigation Program with Tetra Tech, Inc., CH2M Hill, and CDM Smith, Inc. Term of 3 years for an amount not to exceed $12 million.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioner President and Commissioners. My name is Mirat Degavi, and I'm the Operations Division Manager of Owens Lake Regulatory Affairs and Long-Term Planning Office. Apologize for the long title. With me is Mr. Nelson Mejia. Mr. Mejia in part oversees our design and construction of Owens Lake dust mitigation projects. I'm just going to highlight some key points in the package that's in front of you. For your considerations, there are 3 agreements for providing engineering design services for Owens Lake. The proposed agreements, as it was indicated, is with 3 firms. The total amount of these agreements is for $12 million, and the duration of each agreement is $3 million. So all 3 agreements total is not to exceed $12 million. The reasons for these agreements are several. Is to assist the department with design of additional dust control mitigation measures on Owens Lake in accordance with Great Basin Unified Air Pollution Control District's orders. To assist the department in responding to construction issues associated with construction of those activities. Assist the department in improving the efficiency of our existing dust mitigation infrastructure, as well as implementing our water-saving measures on Owens Lake. And finally, to assist the department with design of the Owens Lake Master Project. With that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Does the ratepayer advocate have a comment on this item?
The brief comment is we would like to have the tasks tracked so we can separate new tasks from old tasks and on new locations from old locations.
Absolutely, we will be doing that.
Commissioner Fleming?
No. I had a question.
Commissioner Funderburk?
I noticed that there, just like a lot of our contracts, there are some experts that are not in state, in California, and I would just ask the management to do everything they can to keep some of these subcontractors as much as possible in state. I'm not trying to micromanage here, but it's something that I noticed. I know that there's expertise, supposedly, that people in California don't have that's available out of state, but I want to make my statement clear for the record that I would like to make sure that that's implemented, especially out in this area where I've spent so much of my time the past 9 months. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. We'll try it.
I have a question. What are the roles of these 3 companies? What does Tetra Tech do? What does CH2M Hill do? What does CDM Smith do in the context of this agreement, or these agreements?
I will start, and then Mr. Mejia could expand on that. Basically, what we try to do, our experience has been when we always have had a one firm, the customer relationship side will go down because of the resource limitations or whatnot. So with having 3 firms, we will be able to bid the design or the activity or the task, and they get the lowest price for doing that service. And this also ensures that we have the necessary skills to do the activity or the project by utilizing the expertise of these 3 firms. They each have their own specialties, but in general, we will be trying to get the lowest price as we move forward with the implementation. That's my
In
vision.
summary, what are each of their 3 specialties?
Nelson, you want to?
You know, we have representatives from each of the 3 firms attending this meeting, if you would like to hear from them more specifically. But in general terms, you know, what we plan to obtain from this RFP is your typical engineering, you know, disciplines, services in those areas, mechanical, civil, electrical. There are other areas of expertise like landscaping architects, soils. Even though we do have that kind of expertise in-house, soils are almost like are constantly changing, so it requires a certain level of expertise in that area. We also have SCADA requirements, controls, and you know, for the most part, we've determined that all 3 of these firms, you know, meet our criteria as far as technical expertise.
All 3 of these firms are here for engineering expertise and only engineering expertise?
Absolutely.
None of them are here for any other reason?
That is correct.
And to clarify, so there is a strong, you know, scientific and technical background behind each firm, and so we have those resources that we can leverage. And as we've learned through the years, things change in Owens Lake. Water savings projects that we're trying to do now that we did not envision a couple of years ago, and so having the firms on board gets us different kinds of backgrounds, and then if things change, they also can access a broader staff level, either from their own firm or from other subconsultants who may be able to help us. It could be people with farming backgrounds, you know.
But it's all engineering and science. It's not lobbying or advocacy.
No. This is all to get the work done that we've agreed to do or may be obligated to do in the future.
Okay.
May I ask, how often have each of these firms assisted us in Owens Valley?
If I may, well, CDM Smith is the most recent one. I have to say in the last 3 years, they've designed 2 jobs for us. CH2M Hill, it's been a few years since they participated in any projects at Owens Lake. It's been, I believe, like 7 or 8 years. And Tetra Tech has participated only as a sub-consultant in some of our projects.
Well, I'm disappointed, just for the record, that the vendor history has not been provided to this board, because I think that's always very important, especially since we're going to be talking about procurement later. In the future, to feel comfortable moving forward with an item personally as a commissioner, I would like to have the history that we have with various entities that have worked with the Department of Water and Power. And also, I'm still not clear on, typically we try and leverage negotiating a contract with one firm, especially when we're talking about $12 million. Would you elaborate why it's more fruitful to divide this within 3 different groups and exactly what their specialties are?
Well, if I may, Commissioner, is that one is that in order to get that exactly to your essence of your questions, are we getting the best price for the activities? So one approach is that we will have a particular task for them to design a specific component. They will be each asked to provide a price for that activity, and then that they're all qualified for, and then we will choose who will get the job based on that. So this competition will continue throughout the process. So that's one of the essence in terms of the leveraging, as you alluded to, in terms of the benefit of each company that brings and the resources that they bring. With regard to, as Mr. Mahia indicated, They all have similar skills. One of the things that has been a concern for us moving forward, we have a very short period of time to design and construct these facilities.
I understand all that, but I feel like you're speaking in a very vague way.
I apologize.
So, no, and I apologize if I'm not understanding you, but exactly what are the roles of these three firms, and what specialties are required by the three of them?
Marty?
Yeah. So, as you know, in the past, we've always had one firm on at a time, and the problem becomes that one group has expertise and nobody else seems to learn, and then they have an inside track on all the projects. So, as Malad said, this will give us a different avenue to get more experience, broader consultant base on the lake. We are going to work specifically, if we end up in a situation where we're going to do phase 9 and 10, then they will have consulting contract on board that allow us to finish design for those areas as well as administer construction. We have the tillage project known as T2V Squared that we're working on that the board met on last week. And so as we expand that, these groups will be able to do engineering to support that as well as construction management on the ground. We're looking at the Owens Lake Master Project, and that actually what started this was knowing that even if we were done at 45 square miles on the lake, that our plan was to transition that, and there would be a tremendous amount of design work in transitioning those areas to get the water savings that we need. So whereas we've had one firm on at a time designing on the lake, this gave us a broader base of people to pull from, and their sub-consultant base is broad and can grow as needed as things change on the lake. So they will specifically do design work. And as with the master project, we've brought out landscape architecture for the first time so that things don't look like treatment ponds out there. And so these are the services basically to continue the work that we've been doing. But they'll do hard engineering design, construction management, and that sort of thing.
Commissioner, there is a vendor history on page A3 of the board package.
If I may add, one of the intents under this agreement also is basically to address Commissioner Vanderberg's comments. We want to expand the knowledge base at the lake. CDM has done an excellent job for us for the last few years, but we are basically dependent on their knowledge. So having 2 additional firms involved, one of the task orders that we're planning to issue for CDM is to bring everybody else up to speed.
Commissioner Noonan, I share your concerns, and I think that it's appropriate to raise a lot of what you have out there. But just a little from my own moderate experience out there, and as I noticed they didn't have any gardening experience either. But I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Jim McDaniel, Marty Adams, Malad, Nelson. You've tolerated a lot of questions from me. I don't know if Commissioner Newton had as many prior, but you've done a fabulous job. And I think I've written this. I've never. I think that the best thing to do is to keep things open, keep things wide, and I think that this step is a great step. And as an environmental law practitioner, I can reassure the commissioners that what they're doing out at Owens is they're taking what are best practices steps in implementing a remedy that is constantly under attack, change, and et cetera, and they're doing the best. Even if there's a minor premium that has to be paid about having 3 consultants up to speed, it's well worth it when you get in a jam to have somebody that can just jump in there. So my comments about the sub-consultants being out of state notwithstanding, I wanted to just say that you've done a very solid job, and I'm looking forward to continuing my work in the future. I'm not going to just jump out of this, even if I know you'd prefer that, but I'm looking forward to continued success and implementing in the future.
Other comments, other questions?
I just would like to respond to Mr. McDaniel. Yes, there is a vendor history, but if you review it, Out of the 3 vendors, there's one that has no information. Every single item says to be determined, and so I consider that incomplete information.
If I may provide some insight
You know
to
what?
that.
I think we're actually done with this particular item. We have heard very clearly that we need more detail on the vendor histories of each of these, and we'll ensure that that happens. My apologies.
Is there a motion?
I'll move. Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
That's a no or an aye?
I know.
It's a no.
Because I don't feel this was properly delivered with the information that I would require to feel comfortable moving forward.
You don't have to explain it.
Yeah.
So, Barbara, 4-1, Commissioner Noonan voting no.
Okay.
Number 22, bid number 7241, construction of the river supply conduit improvement upper reach units 5 and 6 project with WA RASIC SAK joint venture.
Hello, good morning. Susan Rogani, Water Engineering and Technical Services. This project, we call the RSC 5 and 6, is part of the projects that we need for compliance for the long-term 2 surface water treatment rule. And it, along with the river supply conduit unit 7, is part of the replacement of the pipeline that comes from North Hollywood Pumping Station, which is by Van Owen and Morella down to the Headworks tank site. It also has the additional benefit of replacing aging infrastructure because this pipeline was originally constructed in the 40s. We anticipate to get over $100 million worth of funding from the Department of Drinking Water, which was formerly the CDPH, which changed departments. This pipeline segment is over 3 miles long, and it consists of 78-inch welded steel pipe. The reason we picked the welded steel pipe was based on the required pipe size, the availability, the pressure requirements, and the ability to install it in the tunnels. Now, we've done extensive public outreach to the neighborhood councils and council offices to address the concerns of this project on the impacts of the community, and this effort is ongoing.
Questions, comments? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
It's passed.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, we move to items 23A and B. Let me just ask a couple of housekeeping questions. We have one of our outside counsel coming to participate in a closed session at 1:30. How long is the DWP procurement presentation more or less expected to take?
20 minutes.
Okay, I would propose that we go ahead and do that prior to the closed session if there's no objection. Okay, first of all, 23A on the Renewable Portfolio Standard Projects Update.
Commissioners, you have a report, a monthly report standing there in the Renewable Portfolio Standard, and if you have any questions, we're available for that.
Any questions? Thank you. We move to 23B, procurement presentation.
Good afternoon. Gwen Williams, Director of Supply Chain Services, and to my left helping me with the presentation is Simon Zodus, Manager of Specifications and Supplier Diversity. Let's see. I'd like to start off by saying this this presentation was originally requested by our chairperson. In December of 2013, he noted that he didn't understand the contracting process and would like a presentation, and it was followed up by Commissioner Noonan, who knew that we'd made a presentation to the previous board and suggested that we do one to this board also. So Just start off, the first page of the presentation under the category Essentials is the procurement principles that we try and live by in supply chain services in terms of making sure that we're transparent and we act in integrity, that we do our best to promote competition, provide timely support in spite of staffing shortages to our internal customers, that we minimize the administrative cost in any time that we can, that we always comply with applicable governance laws and regulations, and that we also maximize the use of cost-effective, sustainable materials in conformance with Mayor Garcetti's wishes that we move forward with more green products and the ordinance associated with that. The next slide. I go into procurement methods and metrics. This is addressing fiscal year 2014. The first item that I've listed is a blanket authority, and that's kind of our smallest, in some cases, instrument that we use to buy things. We're trying to minimize the use of the blanket authority for small, inconsequential things like plumbing, fittings, et cetera. We'd rather use the P card. And we're moving in that direction. But we also use blanket authorities in very large amounts to pay things like utility bills, postal services. We have a blanket blanket agreement with the Bureau of Contract Administration, who we pay to do some of our contract compliance work. So that's in the millions of dollars that we use a blanket for that, because it's the only instrument that we have for intercity transfers of monies for services that they provide. Under the purchase card, we were audited in 2011. I came on board in 2012, and we've been working. There were 33 audit findings related to the use of the P card, and we've been working diligently for the last couple of years to address those findings and to improve the use of the P card. One of the most recent things that we did with the P card is implement a system of points, so that if people are continually using the P card inappropriately, we assign them a number of points, and if they get a certain number of points within a 12-month period, we will recommend suspending their card or suspend the card depending on what the
I do want to make it clear,
circumstances
these aren't violate. These are people who are not following the process and who find it more expeditious to use their purchasing cards, and it can sometimes happen in a volume that, when turned to a system similar to points on your driver's license as a means of creating a system to ensure compliance. But this is not as if that there are significant violations or things. We still would pursue any of those along the behavioral modification disciplinary aisle. So I just wanted to draw that line.
There has been media attention about specific incidences, though, where these cards were abused. And so what precautions are we taking for those few individuals that try and abuse using this card?
One of the things that we did as a result of the audit, which was a self-requested audit that we asked the controller to do, was at our request. And the auditor came back and suggested that one of the most effective things that we could put in place is to ensure that that the supervisors of the people that have these cards are reviewing the purchases they make, because they can make the purchases and they can come to our staff, but we're not knowledgeable about what they're doing out in the field, and so the onus is on the supervisors for them to really review and make sure. We do random audits, to take a look at what they're buying and ensure that it's in compliance. If we see that they're splitting purchases or using the P card for an inappropriate item, then we call that to the supervisor's attention. We evaluate when they ask for a request to the thresholds in their P cards. If they want to increase it from a dollar amount to the other, we look at their past history and their handling of the card before we make that determination about granting the P card. It's always, like anything, it's open. If somebody's smart enough, like a hacker, they can get through the system. But we have tried to put controls in place to manage it. So the next slide is cooperative agreements, which as a board you've seen some of those where, for instance, with uniform rentals or cargo vans that we try and take advantage of the volume and get discounts on those items. So we cooperate with other entities that have either asked us to participate on a solicitation so that they can get the quantities up and get a larger discount, or an entity that's gone out and done something and we've piggybacked on that contract because it's allowed piggybacking on the contract. The next one is sealed bidding, and that's where we buy most of our material, equipment, and construction, simple construction. We don't do design build under sealed bidding, but most of our other construction is under sealed bidding. And these awards are made to the lowest price responsive and responsible bidder, and this is where we run into problems. I wanted to correct a statement that I made earlier where I talked about the checklist. We do have a checklist on the sealed bids. We don't on RFPs because the RFPs we get in hard copy in addition to them submitting them electronically. I think some questions have come up in the past on the next slide related to competitive negotiation. We use the competitive negotiation method, and that's where we issue a request for proposal when we're buying services or complicated construction contracts where it's a designed build effort. And we've got something like we did an RFP for Scattergood, which was a $600 million contract. Because of the complexity of that contract, we can't do it as low bid. We do it under the competitive negotiation. We'll do things as simple as developing policies and procedures. We do real estate appraisals and title insurance services under the competitive negotiation method. I think, Commissioner Noonan, you asked a question previously about who is it that sits on the evaluation team. And that consists of subject matter experts within the department that sit on that team. Procurement is involved in that process. We meet with the team before they start the evaluation process. We give them written directions about the rules that they have to follow. We require that when they're finished with their evaluation process that they submit that evaluation score sheet to us. We review it to make sure there's no lack of consistency in terms of if somebody gave a 1 and somebody else gave a 9, we'll bring them together and say, did you guys read this differently? Why are you so far apart? The admin code allows the proprietary departments, the general manager for either the general manager or her designees to determine who sits on those evaluation teams. But usually they're subject matter experts. Procurement does not evaluate normally because we don't have any expertise in whatever it is that we're buying, but we oversee the process.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. The next chart's just kind of a miscellaneous summary of some of the metrics that I thought you might be interested in. We had 34 protests that we received during the fiscal year. 2 of them were sustained. We had 8% of non-responsive bids, and the presentation that you got the last time that I never made the presentation about indicated that I think it was 6.2% for that particular quarter for non-responsive bids. We've had somewhat of an uptick, and that's what got my attention to then set up the meeting with the city attorney who's in charge of ethics to try and deal with some of these issues about non-responsiveness, because it is very difficult. I don't know if Barbara passed out for your... Yes, she did. Yeah, so if you can kind of take a look, I've given you a copy of what we suggested, that they make changes to the form, and what the old form was. And if you look at the old form, you can see those tiny little boxes at the bottom of page 1 of 3 and the bottom of page 2 of 3, which they frequently miss. It's in a very small font. They don't see it. It's required that they check it. And the certification was confusing because many people read it, well, if I don't have any subcontractors that are 100,000 or more, then I don't need to sign this. But it's really certifying the whole form. So we've asked that the certification be moved up toward the front, to try and simplify it as much as we can so that we don't have as many non-responsive bids. And as I said, the ultimate solution to this would be to amend the ordinance so that it can come in after the bid. We do that with a lot of other documents. We don't require that they're submitted until we've determined who the winning bidder is, and we only get them from the winning bidder. But in this case, we're bound by the ordinance to get them when the bid is submitted.
And of the 8% of the bids that are non-responsive, how many are because of this ethics set of issues?
This CEC 55 is the most prevalent reason that they're non-responsive. On the item number 14 that you were looking at before, CEC 50 was one of the reasons that we stated that they were non-responsive. That's very rarely. On the previous presentation I gave you, I had happy faces and sad faces, and CEC 50 had a happy face, and CEC 55 had 2 unhappy faces, because that's what's most commonly missed is the CEC 55.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What's the process for changing this?
For changing this form?
For changing this form.
Well, we've been making calls for about a year and a half to try and talk to the staff about changing the form, and we weren't getting anywhere. So I asked Dirk to make a call to his colleague, who's the city attorney over that supports the Ethics Commission, and she was amenable to a meeting. So we went over. We sent in advance a copy of what we thought should be the changes. We had a meeting, and they didn't think they were, anything that they couldn't live with, but the changes have to be approved by the Ethics Commission itself. And they said they didn't have time to agendize it for their August meeting, but they would try and get it on their October agenda to talk to the Commission about changing the form. And their longer-term solution was that they would also have a conversation with them about changing the ordinance so that the form could be submitted after the fact and not with the bid.
Would it be helpful to you if any of us contacted any of the ethics commissioners?
Absolutely.
Good.
Yes.
In an ethical way.
In an ethical way, yes.
Are you planning to testify at that meeting if it's not?
I am going to attend the meeting, yes.
So that you can give the
Yes.
background, because I think that would be very helpful.
And one of the things that helped us with our argument was Water had just had a very large solicitation that failed because of these forms. And so Stepan Tucker from Water went over with us. We wanted to take one of our customers over with us so that they could hear the impact of what this form does to the solicitation process. They had a window on Silver Lake that they were trying to make, and because we had to find the bidders non-responsive, they missed their window and they'll have to wait another year. And once they heard that impact, they really kind of looked up and said, okay, we'll try and take a look at modifying this. Okay. So let's see, the total spend of $1 billion. Spend is the amount of money that we actually pay out in a year versus the total dollars obligated. Those are the contracts that we've awarded in the fiscal year. Our small business contracting, we're not happy with the percentages that we have on that. We're going to be coming to you next month with a change to the small business enterprise program that we think might be more effective, and it's in line with the program that was adopted by the airport 2 years ago, and they've had a lot more success with achieving their goals than we have.
Excuse me, before you move forward, Ms. Williams, are we prohibited by 209 from breaking down the contracting to minority-owned
Yes,
businesses
we are.
also?
Yes, we are.
Does that But don't we ask for that information anyway?
We do ask for the information, and probably a high percentage of the small businesses that we do have are minority or women-owned businesses. But 209 prohibits us from setting any goals, and we adopted the ordinance related to small business programs.
What percentage of the small business, approximately?
Probably about 4.8 to 5% of them are women-owned or minority firms.
I want to thank you for the outreach efforts that you've made and that the department's made. Ms. Edwards, thank you for supporting that. It means a lot to me, means a lot to people out there who don't have a voice in the process, and I look forward to working with you. Actually, I'll let you finish your presentation, but on specific efforts to increase the numbers of women and minority-owned businesses in our queue.
Right. The next page kind of just indicates, in the yellow, in 2013, at the beginning of 2013, those are all of the forms that bidders had to submit with their bid. And it was just crashing the system. We were having a lot of non-responsive bids, so I got all the attorneys in the room that I could and said, prove it to me that they must come in with a bid. And so we worked for about 2 hours, and we narrowed it down to what you see in the white column, and those are the minimum. And we'd like to change that, again, like I said, with an ordinance with the CEC 55, that could come in after the bid. The contractor responsibility questionnaire was another form that we were having a lot of difficulty with, people filling it out correctly. We worked with the Bureau of Contract Administration and advised them that we were modifying that form, which we did in June to make it easier for people to be compliant. The SBE, DBBE outreach, if you adopt the changes that we're recommending for the Small Business Enterprise Program, we will have mandatory SBE goals, and we will eliminate the Good Faith Effort program in its entirety. The advocacy groups for minorities and women do not like the Good Faith Effort requirement. They feel like it's a pro forma activity, and that they really don't get any business. People just kind of fill out the paperwork and check all the check marks and don't give them any business. But if we have mandatory goals that are set appropriately depending on what the subcontracting availability is, that we may have higher percentage. The airport went with this program, and they've done a report as about 6 months ago about the effectiveness of them going to that program, and it does work for them. So we're moving in that direction also, but as I said, we'll come to you with a board report in September about the changes that we're recommending.
Gwen, what is DVBE?
Disabled Veterans Business Enterprise Program.
I would just want to add to that I'm glad that the airport is doing that, and that we're also doing that. It's well documented that you get more bang for your buck many times with women and minority-owned businesses. They're smaller, oftentimes less capitalized, but they don't have as much overhead. And I think that they're not lesser than. They actually, in the grand scheme of things, when you stack them up against any other businesses, they oftentimes get better value. You get better value. So I want to make sure that you continue with that, and look forward to being kept apprised of your efforts there.
It's interesting, a lot of the good faith effort actually flushes a lot of competent firms out, because it has become such a process with very little ultimate benefit. So I was pleased to hear Gwen was heading in this direction as well.
Okay, the next, we've kind of covered this already. This is, just kind of in rank ordering the primary causes of non-responsiveness. And then I go into...
As you're back to that, let me just ask you one other question about that. Are these forms required by the other city proprietary agencies as well?
Yes, the other proprietaries are required to do these also.
So the forms are the same?
Yes.
And do we know if the others have also asked the Ethics Commission for the kind of help we're asking for?
They have not.
Should we talk to them and try to do this collaboratively?
I can do that. I think I've talked to the Bureau of Contract Administration, and they were happy for me to take the lead in doing that. And I'm sure the airport will concur also.
Is the other proprietary agencies, do they view it as a deal like just automatically non-responsive in their criteria? To hear Commissioner Fleming and what his concern was, that kind of made me a little concerned that we're losing very qualified bidders on something that they might have been an oversight.
Well, it's a concern of mine also, which is why I finally went over to City Hall, because it translates to money. You know, if we can't choose the lowest bidder, and sometimes on a large bid there could be millions of dollars of difference when we have to go to the second low bidder.
It's not just price; it's quality as well.
Sometimes, yes.
We can pay the lowest price and still get crummy quality. But
Right.
I think that expanding the universe, whatever we can do, I think that all the commissioners would agree to help make this happen.
I've actually had some preliminary discussions with the harbor. Part of the reason it hasn't risen to threshold levels there is, you're talking about a 900-person organization, and the volume just isn't there. We're probably the agency that uses this most heavily, but given the leadership that's in place in the other proprietaries, I'm pretty sure that we can ask them to lend their support to this effort.
And to the challenges section, Mr. Wiggs said, why are you putting up all these strikeouts? And I was putting them up because I presented it to the board previously in terms of what some of the organizational challenges were, and I wanted to indicate the progress that we've made in addressing some of them. We still, because of our staffing shortages, are still dealing with a lot of constant rushes where sometimes there just aren't enough staff to get the specifications developed, so that we're up against the wall at the last minute trying to get these solicitations out before the current contract expires. So we're still dealing with a lot of rushes, and we know that there's staffing shortages in some of the specifications office. I think water is probably adequately staffed. They have someone dealing with RFPs and specs, but power is still working on that. And in the joint system, I'm going to take one of my managers that I'm interviewing for right now and put them in charge of working with the joint systems so that we can assist them in developing more robust statements of work and specifications.
A quick question for you. And first of all, I just want to thank you for this subsequent presentation. And I know I've given you accolades in the past, and I want to just echo them. I think the department has been so fortunate to retain you, and I believe that you are taking the department in the right direction. So thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
That being said, talking about challenges and non-responsiveness, I appreciate your correction that seal bids, they're given a 24-hour window period to learn. If there's anything missing, you have 24 hours to furnish this information. Are you planning to do that for all general RFPs?
Yes.
Okay, because I think that's really important.
Yes.
That goes to the spirit of everything that
Yes.
you were talking about.
Yes. So the challenges now that we have, one is the volume of work. Commissioner Noonan knows, and some of you may know that we've been dealing with staffing problems for quite some time. But I do have the first one of my assistant utility buyers came on last week, and we expect 6 more on next week. So, and then more utility buyers maybe in the next 3 months. And so that will go a long way to help us address the 16-person shortfall that we had when we were benchmarking and when we went forward with the request in 2012 to add additional people. Training of the procurement staff, even though we get new people on board, it's going to take some time to get them up to speed and trained. We're going to implement a mandatory training program that they all have to go through so that we make sure that they're as competent as they can, as fast as they can. Inadequate contract administrator training. We have about 500 contract administrators here in the department. Some of them in water and power do contract administration all the time, so they pretty much kind of know what they're doing. But we have a lot of people that are contract administrators that they don't do solicitations every year, so they're not quite sure about, what they should be doing. So I have an advisory council that's composed of John Dennis, Stefan Tucker, and Tia Nwosu from IT, and we've been working for the last couple of months to develop in-house contract administrator training. We're not using a consultant this time. We're doing it ourselves, and we're identifying subject matter experts within the department that will be doing the training that will commence at the early part of next year. Communication issues. We have a lot of knowledge that's in people's heads, but it's not written down. So we're in the process of developing policies and procedures and standard operating procedures so that everybody can be on the same page about how we're supposed to do things. Change management issues, it's changing a culture is like moving a battleship, and it takes a lot of time in order to do that, so that people don't go, well, I've always done it that way. Well, we're trying to get to the point where we say, but we're going to do it better, but it just takes time to accomplish that. ERSP, which is our online bidding system, it wasn't really set up to gather data and produce reports like I would like to have them produced. So we do a lot of manual reporting, but we're working with ERSP to improve the system so that I can generate data a little bit faster. The quality of some specifications has been an issue for some while. We've talked about it. There's some movement in that direction, especially with water. We talked about their non-responsive bids, technical non-responsive bids, where we had a bid come in, it was non-responsive, we went out, it was non-responsive again. They then chose to issue requests for information, meet with some of the vendors, especially with the butterfly valve area, and they've made some changes to their specifications that they think are value added. External problems. I used to be on the outside, so I know that this is an issue when people are trying to prepare proposals and bids at the last time, but we really, sometimes it's just, everything that we do to try and make them responsive, they still have quality control issues on their side. What I've started doing is if someone's not responsive, I send a letter to the president of the company asking them why they thought they were non-responsive, and is there anything that we can do to help them be responsive the next time? Because I think sometimes the people at the top of the company don't realize what's going on at the lower levels, and so we're trying to bring that to their attention in a gentle way. Confusing compliance requirements, which we don't have any control of, which I've spoken about. And it's hard for people when there's one way of doing things at the airport and one way of doing things at the port and one way of doing things at DWP. I think Marcy's been talking to some of the other general managers. I've been talking to some of the other staff at the other departments, and we're working on trying to do things in a more similar manner so there's less confusion. We're starting to partner with some of them on other initiatives, which I'll talk about in a minute. They still, if it's a new vendor bidding with us, we're one of the few agencies that requires everything to be submitted online, and they still have a problem with technology. But we work on that. Vendor performance issues, which burn resources and generate requirements for rebids. That's particularly difficult for us in the broker area, where we have brokers who are using the system. With the local business preference program has generated the development of a lot of brokers who may not manufacture a transformer, but they'll set up shop here in Los Angeles in order to take advantage of the local business preference. And sometimes we have difficulty with them because they're not the manufacturer, but it's something I'm going to take on in the future, but it requires a lot of time and resources. Can't do it right now. Transformation, I'll just go through quickly. This was a list of items that we had in May of 2013. We still have a number of them to complete. Number one, we're going to ask for the elimination of goals on materials-only contracts, because that is a big area of us getting non-responsive bids. You know, they can't meet the goals because they're just manufacturing material. They're not subcontracting. So I think it's inappropriate that we put goals on those contracts. So we're going to move forward with asking you to make that change. We'll be in compliance with the airport on that. We're going to track sustainability products. We've got to get to cycle time, but I think we've improved in our cycle time, but I haven't done service level agreements with our customers yet until I got fully staffed. Okay. I'll just kind of, we've already talked about a lot of the bid responsiveness. The reorganization, I think, helped where we aligned with our customers. I've talked about bid responsiveness. The admin code change. We've been trying to get that code changed for 13 years. It took 13 years. When Marcy came on board, it had been stuck over at City Hall for almost a year, and she was able to get them, Councilman Fuentes, to support it, and we moved forward, and we're now in alignment with the airport and the port that they got that approved. We were the first ones to initiate it, but the last ones to get it approved. We've established stronger P-card controls, which I've spoken about, and eliminated the mandatory good faith effort. Transformation 2014 in process, updating our terms and conditions and contract language. One of the things that the ratepayer advocate brought to our attention is we seem to have a one-size-fits-all approach, which we're trying to change so that we don't have the same terms and conditions if we're buying paper towel dispensers that we have for buying a transformer. Dirk and some of my staff are working on easy form contracts, which will have, rather than extensive terms and conditions that don't apply to them, we'll have a set of terms and conditions that are only 6 pages long that apply to services contracts, that apply to materials contracts, that apply to construction contracts. We'll be at full staffing in procurement, I think, by December. In January, we'll have standard operating procedures. We're hoping by January we'll have a change to the form. And you can read the rest of them. And then the one thing on next steps that I wanted to emphasize was the minority vendor outreach. We are establishing a training academy for small business enterprises focusing on minority businesses. It'll be on campus at USC. Former Commissioner Sales was kind enough to provide us with a classroom in the VKC building on campus. We're doing this in collaboration with the Bureau of Engineering, with the City of Los Angeles, and the Bureau of Contract Administration. So the staff from all of those organizations will be teaching these classes over a 10-week session where they'll have a unique opportunity to interact with the staff here at DWP and the Bureau of Engineering. Also, USC is their developer, I think it's Montgomery Dinwiddie, will be teaching one of the classes about how small business firms can work with private developers and contractors. So we're hoping, we've got the application deadline is August the 29th. We have slots for up to 30 people. We have 22 applications so far. And we think that'll go a long way toward improving our profile in terms of our outreach to minority vendors. And the rest of it, I'm going to let you read. So,
I want to thank you for a very thorough presentation.
Are there any questions?
Any questions from any commissioners?
I've tired you out.
Only a bravo. Well done.
I think you have a unanimous bravo from this commission with a great deal of gratitude. I think Commissioner Noonan said it very well for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, counsel.
Yes, sir. We shall go into closed session. Afterwards, the board shall publicly report any action taken in closed session and the vote or abstention of every member present thereon.
Thank you.